welcome to the June Northern Ireland Centenary News from the Northwest Cultural Partnership with me, Lewis.
And me, Jessica. Coming up on today's show,
We'll look at a new initiative to take theatre to the streets.
we have an interview with comedian Tim McGarry. We look at a huge honour for one of our villages.
And take a look at facts about Northern Ireland.
Our first story sees us catch up with Jonathan Burgess, Artistic Director of Blue Eagle Productions, to discuss how they have taken to the streets and estates to bring theatre to people's doorsteps and communities.
During the situation of the pandemic and the public health crisis, theatre obviously took a back seat and we couldn't perform. During that period of time I developed a project through Blue Eagle called The Show on Your Street, which is a model of theatre whereby we can still give live performances and doing it in a socially distanced way. So fundamentally what it is, the show on your street would come to your district or your town or your housing estate, and we would perform in 6 locations in a very small area during the course of that day. Shows last about 25 minutes, it takes about 10 minutes to set up, 10 minutes to bring down, and then you move it into the next street and you perform, and you do that exactly for 5 or 6 times across the course of the day. And what that does is that allows you to kind of spread your audience. You're not bringing them to a central place, so you're not sort of having to clean out somewhere or whatever where you're going to have repeated shows, and it's outside as well. People can watch it from their houses, they can watch it from the upstairs windows, they can watch it from the end of their gardens or what have you, they can come out into the street. But it allows people to stay safe during this time when they need to be very, very, very careful about that. And then I thought maybe, well, because of the year that it is the 100th anniversary of Northern Ireland, that perhaps that would be something that we could do for the celebration, the commemoration of partition and the creation of the Northern Irish state. So I wrote another short play, 25 minutes, New Beginnings, and it tells the story of 2 young people, 2 young Protestants who come from Donegal, coming into Northern Ireland because they want to sort of retain their Britishness, they want to be part of the British state, they don't want to be part of this new Northern Irish state. Their families have maybe suffered from sort of exclusion and sectarianism in the Republic of Ireland, and that's why they're moving up to start a new life here. So they arrive in the street looking for a relative who they believe lives in this particular street, which of course is any street. When they get here, and that starts it off, and they meet the people in the street, and the discussion sort of goes as to why they're there, what it is that they're looking for. Are they getting what they expect? Is this new Northern Irish state going to be the great thing that they expect it to be? And how they're received by the people. So I don't want to say too much about it and spoil the plot, but at the same time that's what happened. There is a resolution at the end of it, and what it's meant to do, it's designed to sort of pique people's interest. You know, people be left asking questions, maybe thinking a wee bit more about issues around partition. I think that maybe we take sort of a very sort of general view of partition and how it was for the people of the time, instead of maybe looking at the specifics. So that's what New Beginnings does, and of course it's available to tour, and we can bring it to any street in Northern Ireland, or the Republic of Ireland for that matter, and we may get to see some people soon.
You can see the Centenary play as part of this year's Newgate Fringe Festival at the end of July and the start of August. Earlier this month we had a chat with comedian and actor Tim McGarry. Tim, who is most famous for playing Da in the BBC comedy show Give My Head Peace and presenting the comedy panel show The Blame Game, took time to talk to us about his career and the Centenary of Northern Ireland.
What got you into comedy?
Lewis, as I said earlier on, I'm an old fella, so I actually met, I was at Queen's University I went to Queen's University in 1982, and I met 2 fellas called Damon Quinn and Michael McDowell, and Damon used to write plays, and when he was at school, he used to write sketches and shows for his schoolmates, and he wrote a couple of plays, and I got wee parts in his plays, and we started writing comedy shows for charity, me and Damon and Michael, and I'm still with these guys 40 years flipping later. You know, it's ridiculous. I'm still in a gang even though I'm in my 50s. Like, so Damon used to write plays, and then we started doing charity shows for Live Aid and Band Aid to raise money for charity. During the 80s, there was horrible famines in Africa, and we were raising money for charity. And they went very well. In fact, they went so well that we thought, I'll tell you what, why don't we stop doing it for charity? Why don't we keep the money for ourselves and try and make money ourselves as comedians? So we started writing sketches ourselves and putting on shows in the group theatre in Belfast. And it kind of started from there. And then we eventually got a big break on radio way back in 1990. So I was quite late. So I mean, way back then there was no comedy really in Northern Ireland about Northern Ireland. There was a great comedian from Northern Ireland who you probably won't remember who died in 1974 called James Young. And James Young was a great comedian who had a TV series in the early 70s, but he was mainly a theatre comedian and a very, very funny comedian who brought Catholics and Protestants together in massive numbers, was hugely popular across the divide. And he was one of those very early comedians who influenced me. And in fact, Olivia Nash, who plays Ma, who's from Larne, she's a lot older than us, and she's in Give Me a Headpiece, but she actually worked with James Young way back in the 1960s and early 70s. So I mean, we started in the 80s, but our links in comedy in Northern Ireland goes back further than that.
Do you think comedy has changed throughout the last number of years in Northern Ireland? If so, how?
Definitely has, Jessica. It really had, because when we first started in the early 1980s to mid 1980s, there was literally nothing. There was no comedy about Northern Ireland. There was no comedy. People's talking in our accents, talking about Northern Ireland, talking about particularly about politics, because it was too scary, and the theatres had been blown up. There was nowhere to perform. Since James Young died in 1974, there was literally nothing until the late 1980s, until ourselves and Patrick Keelty came on board. And people, to be honest, especially when you were talking about Northern Ireland politics, people were scared, you know. So the likes of, you know, the big names that you might remember from Frank Carson or Jimmy Cricket or another great comedian, what do you call him? Roy Walker. They all went to England. They were from Northern Ireland, but they became very successful in England. So there was no comedy in Northern Ireland about Northern Ireland by people in Northern Ireland because of the time it was. So that has changed dramatically, because a lot of comedians now, it's blossomed, it's flourished now. There's a lot of stand-up comedians about. There are a lot of clubs about in Belfast. There's one in Ballymena. There's a brilliant comedy club in the Braid in Ballymena. There are comedy clubs all over the place, and a lot more young people are getting up and trying it. And that's partly because of the explosion in English television and all of that. There was a lot more opportunity. But so it's certainly changed from my day when we were starting in the group theatre. There was literally nothing. There were no comedy clubs or anything.
How has comedy played a role in the history of Northern Ireland?
Well, that's a very, very good question, because there's always been humour in Northern Ireland. There's always been humour about our division. There's always been humour. There's always been funny plays about Northern Ireland. Comedy about the Troubles has played quite an important part, I think. I think when we first came on the scene in the late 80s, early 90s, there was a relief that finally people were making jokes about politics and making jokes about here. And there was a relief, I think, for when Give Me a Headpiece first started away back in 1997, 98. For the first time, there was a comedy from here, about here. And the BBC were very clear with us. They said, we want this show to be purely for Northern Ireland people. It's not going to go to England. It's not going to go to anybody else. So you can make jokes about Ian Pacey and Jerry Adams across the water in England, even down south. They don't really get it. They don't really know or understand this place. And comedy played a very important role. I mean, I'm not going to say, you know, comedy brought about the peace process or anything like that, but I think comedy did play a vital role in attacking people like the paramilitaries, having a go at them, having a go at the politics behind violence and stuff like that, and mocking sectarianism in its rawest form, and saying, like, you know, this is silly. Let's not take ourselves too seriously, or let's laugh at ourselves at the same time. And I think that's a very important thing for any society, to have the outlet to laugh.
In your role as that and Give My Headpiece, what feedback have you received, and do the members of public say to you about it?
Everywhere I go, it's, oh, what about you? Where's Uncle Andy? And people think the knee breakers is real. It's not real. You can't get a pint in the knee breakers. We make that up. But I'm delighted to say we are. I can go nowhere because I'm 6'4" and I look like I am. I'm tall. I've grey hair and a beard. Olivia Nash, who plays my wife, is tiny. She's 4'11" and a half. She can't go anywhere. Everybody recognises her. The guy who plays Uncle Andy, called Marty Reeve, he doesn't look like that in real life. He's got grey hair, he's got stuck-on beard and a stuck-on moustache when he's playing Uncle Andy, so nobody recognises him. He can go anywhere and people don't recognise him, which he thinks is brilliant. But the positive reaction has been brilliant. We've been very, very lucky, and we were a big hit. Even, we've been running for 20 years now and Give Me a Headpiece, and we're still getting huge audiences and we're still getting great feedback. Some people don't like it, of course. It's Northern Ireland. People in Northern Ireland aren't afraid to tell you we don't like it, but it's still hugely popular. Now, we speak our minds here, and if people don't like it, fine, don't watch it. But it's still massively popular, and we get huge audiences on the telly, and we get to do a tour every year. We go all around Northern Ireland, all across everywhere, from Strabane to Coleraine to Armagh to everywhere, Hole in the Hedge, and it sells out everywhere. And there's nothing better than doing it live on the stage.
You give politicians a lot of stick in some of your comedy. Have any of them ever said anything to you about it?
The big Ian Paisley, the late Dr. Ian Paisley, you probably don't remember him. We used to make fun of him, but he took it in good heart. He has a sense of humour. And we were in the lift in the BBC one night, and we knew we were doing a show, and he said, "Boys, be kind to me tonight. Now, be very gentle with me." So he took it well. Martin McGuinness actually had quite a good sense of humour. Some politicians have less of a sense of humour, I'll be honest with you. Jerry Adams, we know, doesn't like us, which I take as a bit of a compliment, to be honest with you. I think Jerry doesn't like our stuff, and he thinks we're getting at him. So some politicians kind of go with it. I think in the very early days, they were a bit scared to come out and say they didn't like it. And when it became so popular, and it's cross-community, it's Catholic, Protestants, east, west of the band, south of the band, it's men, women, old, young, whatever. So politicians to come out and say, I don't like that. Some of them probably don't like what we say, but that's tough. They have to put up with it. That's democracy.
On the Blame Game, how do other comedians from other parts of the UK find the Northern Irish humour?
That question's asked all the time, Jessica. You're absolutely right. God love them. Some of them just don't get it. I think the great thing about the Blame Game is we do it live in front of an audience, and you see half an hour, but we record about an hour and a quarter, an hour and a half, and they edit it afterwards. And yes, some English comedians have come over and they're a bit arrogant, and they think, oh, this is just a regional show, this will be easy peasy. And then they find out that, in fact, Colin, Neil and myself and Jake and everybody are actually very good, and we know what we're talking about. Some of them are very good, and some of them tune in, and some of them do work and read up on the news in Northern Ireland and try and make an effort. But this is again, it's a regional show for Northern Ireland, purely for regional. So you've got to accept that English people, and indeed a lot of Southerners, Neil Delamere, who's from the South on the Blame Game, will tell you a lot of people in the South don't watch it, don't really understand Northern Ireland politics, don't get it, don't have the same politicians, don't have the same newspapers, don't have the same television programs, and they kind of are a bit befuddled as well. But English comedians, we do our best to make them welcome, but sometimes they aren't. They don't quite get it, do they?
Are you proud to be from Northern Ireland? And if so, why?
Well, yes, I'm absolutely proud. Now, I know everything in Northern Ireland is laced with politics. I'm from a vaguely nationalist background, but I'm absolutely proud to say I'm from Northern Ireland, proud of Northern Ireland. I'm proud Irish as well, but I'm proud to be from Northern Ireland. I think we've done we've a lot of things to celebrate here. I'm a big sports fan. I love my football. I love boxing. I'm a big mate of I'm not a mate. Sorry, I'm a big fan of Carl Frampton. I'm actually doing an interview with him in a couple of weeks' time, which I'm absolutely delighted about for a radio show. I'm not a massive fan of motorbikes, but you look at the likes of the Dunlops and what the Dunlops achieved in sporting terms, or Jonathan Ray, or football, or arts, even in the arts world, with the likes of Liam Neeson and the Adrian Dunbar and all of that, the actors we have from here. I think for a place that is very small and a place that has, let's be honest, let's not skirt around it. We've had our own problems. We've had a lot of troubles. We've had a lot of violence and a lot of community unrest. But, we still managed to produce an awful lot for a very small region. We're only 1.8 million people in the whole of the UK. And, that's not an awful lot. We punch above our weight, put it like that.
Thanks to Tim for taking the time to speak with us. You can watch the whole interview on our YouTube channel.
The village of Hillsborough in County Down has been granted royal status and will be known as Royal Hillsborough from later this year. It is the first village or town in Northern Ireland to be granted the title. The most famous building in Hillsborough is the castle, which is the residence of the Queen and other members of the royal family when they are visiting Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland Secretary Brandon Lewis made the announcement and said, "The village's royal status reflects the beauty of Hillsborough, as well as its unique history and close connections to the royal family through their home in Hillsborough." The decision follows a recommendation from the UK government in support of an application from Lisburn and Castlereagh City Council, and is a fitting way to mark Northern Ireland's centenary year. Hillsborough is situated 12 miles from the city of Belfast, and it is within the Lisburn and Castlereagh District Council area. The village attracts thousands of tourists each year from across the UK and the world to admire its fine Georgian architecture, parkland and lakeside walks. It has also welcomed many important visitors throughout its history, from the American founding father Benjamin Franklin in 1771 to President George W. Bush in 2003. As we featured in an earlier programme, Hillsborough is also the birthplace to the renowned professor, the late Frank Pantridge, who, in addition to having a distinguished military career, also invented the portable defibrillator, saving lives across the world. Only a small number of places have been granted the royal prefix, with England having 11, Scotland having 1, and Wales also have 1. Hillsborough is just one of Northern Ireland's many scenic towns and villages.
Every month we take a look at some facts and interesting information about Northern Ireland. Did you know?
There is a town called Derry, situated right beside another town called Londonderry in New Hampshire in the United States of America. There are also Londonderrys in England, Vermont, USA, Nova Scotia, Canada, Australia, and there is a Londonderry Island in Chile.
The Karaka Reed Rope Bridge is a rope bridge near Ballintoy in County Antrim, Northern Ireland. The bridge links the mainland to the tiny island of Karaka Reed. It spans 20 metres and is 30 metres above the rocks below. The bridge is mainly a tourist attraction and is owned and maintained by the National Trust.
Northern Ireland is the least forested part of the United Kingdom and Ireland, and one of the least forested parts of Europe. Until the end of the Middle Ages, the land was heavily forested with native trees such as oak, ash, hazel, birch, alder, willow, aspen, elm, and Scots pine. Today, only 8% of Northern Ireland is woodland, and most of this is non-native conifer plantation.
In 1941, many of the animals at Belfast Zoo were killed because of the public safety fears during the Belfast Blitz. The Ministry of Public Security ordered that 33 zoo animals were to be killed in case they escaped from the zoo during the air raids. This included a hyena, 6 wolves, a puma, a tiger, a black bear, 2 polar bears and a lynx. Sheila, a baby elephant, was protected and taken to the home of one of the first female zookeepers in Belfast Zoo. She only lived with Mrs. Austin in the evenings. When the head zookeeper left work, Denise took Sheila from her enclosure, walked her a short distance to her house at Whitewell Road and walked her back up to the zoo in the morning, sometimes stopping at the shop for stale bread. It was also known in the area that she took Sheila for evening walks. During the night, Sheila slept in the Austin's garage. It seemed zoo staff did not know about Sheila's second home until she chased after a dog into a neighbour's garden, breaking the fence. Many of the neighbours were dismayed at this event and brought it to the attention of the head zookeeper. Sheila remained in the zoo after her evening activity was discovered. The story of our elephant angel has captured the imagination of people around the world. The story of Denise and Sheila has inspired theatre shows and opera and was even inspiration for acclaimed author Michael Morpurgo's book An Elephant in the Garden. Our elephant angel story was made into a feature film called Zoo and was released on the 29th of June 2018.
Loch Ness Eel Fishery is the largest commercial wild eel fishery in Europe. Brown eels have 2 different methods of capture, both under licence by Lough Neagh Fishermen's Cooperative Society, which has exclusive rights to the eel fishing in Lough Neagh. Silver eels are fished at fixed weirs at Toom and Kilrea using cog-held nets. This is a nighttime operation as silver eels only migrate under the cover of darkness. All the eels captured either on the loch or at the weirs are transported to the HQ at Toom Bridge for sorting and grading. Once the initial intake checks have been made and the quantity of good quality eels above the minimum size of 40 centimetres have been weighed, the batch is sorted by size, either small or large, and stored in aerated water tanks to reduce the risk of mortality prior to packing. The eels are shipped by air in perforated bags and cartons with some ice. The packaging has been developed to ensure that they have sufficient oxygen and moisture to keep them in good condition until they arrive at their destination, London and Netherlands.
The Newgate Fringe Festival will this year take place in the last week in July and the first week in August. To find out what's on, keep an eye out on our social media channels. Until then, from myself and Lewis, thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Hello, and welcome to the June Northern Ireland Centenary News from the Northwest Cultural Partnership with me, Lewis. This month saw Brady Ulster Scots educational tutors travel to Antrim and Newton Abbey to deliver This month saw Brady Ulster Scots educational tutors travel to Antrim and Newton Abbey to deliver culture workshops. If your group would like these fun, interactive culture workshops, get in Yeah, I said that right. I just get in.
We could even just leave out culture, fun interactive workshops.
Culture.
If you want.
So just leave out culture.
Just
These workshops. I'll just do the fun. If I just say like fun, interactive workshops, or something like that. If your group would like these fun, interactive workshops, get in contact with us here at the Northwest Cultural Partnership or Brady and District Ulster Scots. The village of Hillsborough in County Down has been granted royal status. Is that how you pronounce it? Yes, status. Oh, I don't know why.
I was saying we should have got these out, but it's
Yeah.
only finished not that long ago.
The village of Hillsborough in County Down has been granted royal status and will be known as Royal Hillsborough from later this year. It is the first village or town in Northern Ireland to be granted the title. Hillsborough is just one of Northern Ireland's many scenic towns and villages. Goodbye. This is so weird. Good.
Short and sweet.
Yep. There you go.